Welcome, everybody, to Coming Home with John Allen. This is the segment called Coming Home Commentary. How is it justifiable that it has never been made right the wrong of black families for decades, 50 years, 100 years, 150 years? Let's say since slavery, since 1865, when black people nominally were taken to be regular United States citizens, and all United States citizens are taxed, right? And it is those tax dollars that fund our public schools, right? But for a majority of that time, since the ending of the Civil War, since the Emancipation Proclamation, for a majority of that time, black children have not been allowed to attend those same public schools that their tax dollars fund. Historical fact. It doesn't matter how far to the right you are. It doesn't matter if you're a racist or not. You know, you must acknowledge that there has been school segregation for a majority of the time since the freeing of the slaves, since the Emancipation Proclamation. And when that is the case, when we also acknowledge that those same black citizens who were blocked from attending so-called white schools were taxed, and their tax dollars were used to fund those public schools, why is that wrong not addressed? I don't know. Hey, congregation, can you say reparations? How about righting that wrong of black tax dollars going to schools that were overwhelmingly attended by white children, while those black children of those black taxpayers were not allowed to go to those schools? Segregation is real. Here's another fact for you. Today, when there's supposed to be this colorblind society, when there's supposed to be equal access to education under the law, when there's supposed to be a level playing field, over 70% of black students are at black-only schools, or an overwhelmingly majority black school, while the opposite is true for white students. Why is that? What is that all about? That's another long discussion with a lot of nuance, but it is a discussion that should be had, and those nuances should be picked apart and then put back together to see if it holds logically. Okay? So black tax dollars going to schools that black children were not able to attend for a majority of our time since the Emancipation Proclamation. With that being the case, let's tie it together a little bit. With that being the case, and all of these things that I've pointed out are interlocked. The one point that I brought up has affected the other, both now in modern times and historically. But let's piece this together now about segregated schools. When there are so many black children who go to underfunded schools, when there are so many black children, black students who go to underfunded schools with a level of teaching that is substandard, and I don't mean any offense to any teacher who's teaching at a black school, but let's just keep it real. Let's just say it like it is. There is a lower standard of teaching. In other words, a lower standard of education at those schools. Maybe a lower standard is the wrong thing to say, but there is a lower level of the quality of the education that those kids are getting. When we know these things to be true, let's ask a question again, a legitimate question, not a Tucker Carlson question, but a legitimate question. When we know those things to be true, what does that say for the likelihood of a black student who goes to one of those schools to then go to a college and get accepted? Something to be thought about, something to be discussed. In closing, I would like to say, America, again, and let's just keep things founded in the truth. For a majority of America's history, if you have a graph, a visual graph of American history from, let's just take it from when the Pilgrims landed and all the way up until today. So for a majority of that timeline, America has actively worked to suppress Black Americans and to obstruct their path towards equal education and the equal opportunity to that equal education. And when we know that to be true, is the fact that the Supreme Court has now taken away this form of affirmative action when it comes to college and university acceptance, when they have taken that affirmative action away, does that help to level the playing field? Or does it make the playing field even more unequal? Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. Sub-question: has the removal of affirmative action when it comes to accepting students into college and universities, has the removal of that affirmative action by this Supreme Court, has that contributed towards a so-called colorblind America, a race-neutral America? Has it contributed to that? Or are the differences and the inequality going to be even more glaring? Is it going to be more obvious now going forward as we see what happens to college acceptance numbers for Black people and other minorities as well, but especially Black people? When we see what's going to happen now going forward, does that contribute to this race-neutral country that everybody wants to have? Okay, let's talk about it.